So, I'm in the middle of some random Starbucks in the middle of downtown Las Vegas typing this out for reasons that are beyond me. I guess that if I die, I want at least someone to know what happened to me. You're probably getting the impression that I am scared for my life, but you would be completely wrong. In fact, I'm having the most fun I've ever had. This is by far the best game I have ever played. Now enough with my babbling. Let me indulge you on why I hired a hitman on myself. So it all started about 4 weeks ago. I'm sitting in my office bored as hell, staring blankly into my computer, counting each individual white pixel on that goddamn screen. As I'm staring off into space, enjoying the peace and quiet of my own little world, I start thinking to myself, how did I end up this way? My life is boiled down to me sitting in this fucking cubicle for 8 hours a day, eating and sleeping. I sure as hell didn't grow up thinking, boy, I'd like to spend the rest of my life filing acquisitions for some soul-draining corporation. I mean, I make good money, sure, but I don't even feel human anymore. It's like I'm just going through the motions. I have no kids, no girlfriend, no family that actually want anything to do with me. I'm completely alone. I need some adventure in my life again, some excitement. Fuck, anything is better than what I'm doing right now. I was snapped out of it thinking how pathetic my life was by my annoying ass boss asking me if I had finished this week's paperwork. I hadn't yet, but I lied and told him that I did. He told me in his "I'm superior to you" tone to have it on his desk by tomorrow morning. Yeah, I'll get right on that, you self-centered prick. I finished up with the forms I had been working on and turned off my computer. It was 5 p.m., signaling that it was the end of another meaningless day. I got home and started thinking about what I could do to make my life a little bit more fun. I went through the usual ideas of a vacation, moving to a new city, maybe even a new car. Yet, they all fell short. I needed something really fucking crazy to go down. I really wanted to drop the bomb on my former life and really get the shit started. I started fucking around on the dark web, looking at all the illegal shit that they have to offer. And then I saw it, an ad that said, "Have a problem in your life? Hire one of our cleaners to take care of it. Add Cthulhu's resume." Now my interest was piqued. I checked out their website, and it was a site for hiring a hitman. Then a thought popped into my head. What if I hired a hitman on myself? It should be like a game of cat and mouse, and punishment for getting caught would be, of course, death. I was curious to see what their guidelines were and see how far they would go to eliminate a target. So, I emailed them saying that I had a problem and I wanted to get rid of it. Within 3 hours, I got a response back informing me of all the details of the business and the range of prices it would cost me. I didn't respond right away, allowing myself some time to think carefully of what I would be getting into. The more I thought about it, the more excited I got. This was the ultimate adventure game, like a real-life video game. I would have someone spend night and day hunting me down, and I would have to spend all my time hunting them down. The first person to find the other wins, and the loser dies. It was perfect. So I went into work the next day, knowing that it would be my last day there. I did what every cubicle monkey dreams of doing. I told my boss he could go fuck himself, told the smoking hot receptionist that I wanted to bend her over the desk, and destroyed every last form and file I had on this shithole prison, just to make things harder for all of these douchebags I worked with. Then I got to work on setting everything up. I went out and bought myself some new toys at the local gun store. Bought myself a 9mm Glock, a PS-90 assault rifle, and my crown jewel, a Barrett 50 cal sniper rifle. I also stopped by this nifty little spy store in my city and picked up a few things. A few objects with discrete cameras in them that allowed me to watch through my phone, bug detectors, and a voice changer as well. I then took $30,000 out of my savings account and converted it to Bitcoin. After all that was completed, I contacted the man who had first emailed me and gave him all of my info and told him that this man would be very hard to catch as he travels a lot and that he may be armed. I told him that I didn't just want one regular cleaner. I wanted the best they had to offer. Shortly after sending the email, I received a message back informing that they would send one of their best, but it would cost me a bit more. He also said that as soon as I sent the payment, they would get started. The last line of the email he sent me made me realize shit was going to get serious very quickly. Just a quick warning for you. Once the payment is sent and confirmed, there is no going back. The job will be taken care of, and there's nothing that can be done to stop it. Perfect. I sent the payment immediately and got my confirmation email back that it was received and that someone would be sent out the next day to my location. Now the real fun can begin. So there's the start of this huge shit show I created for myself. And like I said, it's been loads of fun. I've been in this Starbucks for about 2 hours now, and I need to get going as I can't stay in one location for too long. I'll update tomorrow with the rest of my story so far if people are interested. Wish me luck. How's it going, guys? If you missed the first part of my story, here it is. Still alive and whatnot. I need to clear some stuff up with you guys before I get into my story. First off, a lot of you have been doubting the fact that I got a 50 cal Barrett sniper rifle without a waiting period. The reason I was able to obtain it so easily was because the state that I bought the gun in is a very lenient state as far as gun policies. And on top of that, the owner of the store is my neighbor, so he did know that I did want one, and I have wanted one for the longest time, as I have an interest in long-range shooting. So, all I had to do was a simple background check and fill out a good amount of paperwork, and it was mine. Secondly, a few of you were saying stuff like, "You're not going to last a week." If you had even read the first 2 paragraphs of the first entry, you would have known that this has been going on for about 4 weeks now. I've had a few encounters with the man, and I'm hoping to finish this up in the next few days. Anyways, let's continue. So, I had just gotten a confirmation of my payment and received that someone would be sent out the next day. I started packing all of my belongings in my apartment that I would need, as I wouldn't be returning until after all of this was completed. I packed about a month's worth of clothes, all my electronics that I would need, all my guns and spy gear that I had bought myself, and a few other miscellaneous items like toothbrush and shampoo. Once everything was packed up, I went over to a friend's house that had an older car for sale that was registered in his name. I asked if I could trade him cars for reasons I couldn't get into, and gave him $2,000 to just keep my car in the backyard and look after it. I figured if this Hitman agency was any good, they'd look up my DMV records and know what kind of car I was driving and my driver's license and license plate, which would make it a lot easier to find. He agreed and told me to look after myself and to be careful. So, I set out back to my old apartment that night to put all of the things I had packed up into my trunk and backseat. I also set out a little note on my coffee table in my living room that said, "Tag, you're it," just to fuck with the guy and to give him a little heads up that this wasn't going to be an average hit. What fun would it be if he didn't even know that this was a little fun game? I now had everything that I needed to go on this hunt, and a car that couldn't be tracked back to me. Before the day ended, I went to Walmart and picked myself up a prepaid smartphone and then dismantled my old phone so I couldn't get tracked via GPS. Before it got too late, I also stopped by the little spy shop again and picked up some magnetic GPS locator. You know, the kind that Walt and Hank from Breaking Bad put under Gus Fring's car to follow him. After that, I was fully ready to do this. No turning back now. I went back to the area around my apartment around 11 p.m. and parked around 2/3 to 3/4 of a mile away, just to wait. No way I could stay the night there and allow this guy to get the drop on me while I was sleeping. I sat on the passenger side of the car to make it look like I was waiting for a friend to come back to the car, to not freak any people out who lived in the apartments that I was in front of. They said that they'd be sending him out the next day, so I had to sleep in my car and wait for him to arrive. I went to sleep around midnight and woke up around 7 a.m. I took out my nice deer hunting binoculars and waited and waited and waited. I finally got hungry enough to convince myself that I needed something to eat, so I went to a little fast food joint and picked up a few burgers. I went back and parked into the same spot I was before. It was around 5 p.m. at this point, and I figured that this guy wasn't going to come during the day. So I fucked around on Reddit for a few hours until it got dark. I finally got bored of Reddit, so I went back to watching my apartment. Around 10 p.m., I watched an all-black car with dark tinted windows. I think it was a Chrysler 300, pulled up a few hundred feet away from my apartment on the other side of the street. It looked a bit fishy on account of it had the out-of-state plates, and I'd never seen any of my neighbors with this car before. So I started to watch it. It just sat there for about 10 minutes, presumably checking out my house. Then it drove away. Well, that was weird, I thought to myself, as I had the biggest grin on my face. I knew that was the guy. I tried to sleep that night, and maybe got a few hours in around 1 o'clock, but I was so excited with anticipation that I couldn't get a full night's rest. I woke up around 3 to 3:30 a.m. to check everything out. So, I started fucking around on Reddit again and passed the time. Around 4 a.m., the same black car pulled up in the same spot as before. About 2 to 3 minutes of waiting there, the lights shut off and the man got out. He was a bigger guy around my height, about 6 foot, but way bigger muscle-wise. Dude could definitely beat the shit out of me in close quarter combat, so I knew I couldn't let that happen. The guy was also dressed very nice in a suit. What a fucking stereotypical hitman, I thought to myself. I noticed I had the biggest grin on my face again. I felt so alive. The man walked across the street, and sure enough, went right up to my apartment. He took a key out of his pocket, put it in a lock, and slammed it with a small metal brick. At least that's what it looked like. I knew it was a bump key. He then entered my apartment and shut the door behind him. About 30 seconds after he did, I used my binoculars to focus on his license plate and wrote down the numbers. After about 5 minutes, he came back out and put something in his pocket. I'm pretty sure that it was a gun. He also had something else crumbled up in his other hand. He threw it in the gutter, got back in his car, and drove away. I waited for about an hour and went to go see what he threw out. Sure enough, it was the "tag, you're it" note I had left him. I started laughing hysterically. Knew this was going to be a lot more fun than I could ever hope for. I went back to my car to catch a few more hours of sleep. When I awoke, the sun was already up. It was around 8 a.m. I drove off to another one of my buddy's houses who worked for the DMV to get some info on him. He wasn't there, so I went to his work to find him. After about 15 minutes, when he was in between helping people, I walked up to his counter. He was surprised to see me and greeted me with a, "Hey, what's up, man?" I sat down without saying anything to him and slipped him a piece of paper with the license plate number on it. What's this?" he asked. I just looked at him and said, "Don't ask questions. I need the info on the person who has these plates." "Dude, I can't give you that information. I could get in a lot of trouble." I pulled out $200 and slipped it to him and said, "Please, dude, this is important. The guy wants to kill me, and I need the information. My life depends on it. Here's $200. I know you and your wife have been hurting for money." He looked at me really serious and muttered under his breath, "Fuck, man." He took the money and put it in his pocket and started typing on his computer. He then got up from his chair and told me that he'd be right back. About a minute later, he came back with a few sheets of papers. "This is everything that I could find on this guy." I looked at him again with a really serious face and said, "Don't mention this to anyone, even your wife. This guy is really dangerous, and I don't need you getting involved. And make sure no one can trace back the fact that you looked up his information." He looked back at me and said, "Okay." As I was getting up to leave, he just said, "Take care of yourself, man, and be careful." I told him I would, and I couldn't thank him enough. I walked back to my car and started studying the piece of paper, and once again, a huge grin on my face. I now had a bunch of this guy's info in my hands. I knew who I was dealing with. I'm not disclosing this man's name due to the concerns of myself and for his family. We'll just refer to him as Mike. Mike was 35 years old and was registered to an address in Arizona. Like I thought, it was a black Chrysler 300. Now that I had the info that I needed, it was time to stake out my house a bit more. When I got back, it was around 1 p.m., and I parked it a bit further away this time. I sat in my car for about an hour, and then 2 p.m. rolled around. I saw the same black 300 roll up about 2 blocks away from my place again, further away than last time, but close enough to watch the place thoroughly. I was only about a mile away from him, and he didn't even know it. So, the Burger King I'm sitting in right now is pretty much dead now, and I've been here for quite a while. I need to get back to my hotel and start planning some stuff. I'll try to post tomorrow when I get a bit more free time around 5 to 6 p.m. Until next time, no sleep. Until next time. How's it going, everybody? So, first off, sorry yesterday's part wasn't too exciting, as I had to get through the boring parts to get to the kick-ass Michael Bay explosions part. Here's part 1, obviously, if you guys missed it. And here's part 2. Oh, and not sure if I'll be able to update tomorrow. And if I do, it'll be later that night. Why, you might ask? It's Mike's last day on Earth. The day he gets a bullet in between his eyes, or through his chest. Anyways, enough cinematics. Let's get started. I had just gotten back to the area of my apartment and had seen Mike parked down the street from my apartment. At this point, I was done watching him trying to watch me all day, so I decided I needed to test his abilities out. I went a few miles away to an old Motel 6. I walked in and a nice older man was running the front desk. I walked up to him and asked if I could book a room. He said yes, that would be fine. So, I paid with my debit card. I also handed him an envelope and told him that if he saw a man wearing a suit about my height asking for anybody, to hand this envelope to him. He stuttered a bit trying to get out that he doesn't want any type of thing like this, but his attitude changed real quick when I pulled out a $100 bill and handed it to him. Oh, of course, sir. If he comes, I'll give it to him. I then went about another 5 miles away to another Motel 6 and paid for a room with my debit card again. I handed this lady another envelope and pulled out $100 and described Mike to her. If he comes in here, just hand him the envelope and he'll leave. She handed me my room key and I left. I then went across the street to a nicer motel and booked a room with cash. The room was on the 2nd story and had a clear view of the Motel 6 across the street. You might be wondering what was in the envelopes and why I booked 3 rooms. Well, first off, I needed to see if they were monitoring my bank accounts. And secondly, I wanted to see what his reaction would be when he finally realized that I led him to 2 dead ends. The envelopes were 2 pieces of paper. The first one says, "Try again." The second one says, "So close, yet so far. Now, just to wait." I got up to my room and took a shower because I desperately needed it. I then set up one of the hidden cameras that I had bought from the spy shop outside of my room, facing the entrance to the front desk of this motel across the street. I went back inside and waited. About 2 hours later, wouldn't you know it, the black car pulled up in the parking lot. As it sat there, I looked at the GPS tracker I had bought a few days prior, and I knew I had an opportunity to put it on his car so I could track him. The only problem was, if I even attempted to get close to his car, he'd know I was there and might even start shooting at me. I pushed the curtain of the window to the side and looked around and saw a couple of teenagers on the bikes just fucking around in the parking lot. I put on a baseball cap and went downstairs trying to face away from Mike's car the whole time. I walked up to the soda machine that was downstairs and yelled at the kids to come here while I was waving a $100 bill in the air. After all, I'm sure those kids would love some cash to fuck around with and buy some pot. After looking at each other, They came over to me and asked what I wanted. I pulled the GPS locator out of my pocket and told them if they wanted to make a quick buck, all they had to do was wait for the man in the black car across the street to get out and walk into the lobby of the motel and hide it underneath the bumper somewhere and make sure that it was somewhere that it was hard to find. How are we supposed to do it without him figuring out what we're doing? One of them asked. I thought about it real quick and said, just ride your bike behind the car and just pretend to fall off. Then as you go to get up, stick it underneath. They all looked at each other again and snickered and agreed. I turned it on and handed it to one of them. I then handed the $100 bill to another one of them. As he grabbed it, I held on to it, and he looked at me with a questioning face as why I wasn't letting go. They all looked at me at the same time, and I looked at each one of them with dead in my eye and said, if you kids just run off with my GPS locator and my $100, I will find each one of you and kill you and your families. I'm not the type of guy that you would want to fuck with. Got it? Their smiles quickly faded, and they all nodded. I'll be watching from somewhere to make sure the job is done. You boys have a nice day. They slowly turned back around and rode off across the street, not knowing that what I had just said to them was just a bluff. I took the back stairwell back up to my room. As I got in to check the camera I had planted, Mike had just gotten out of his car and was walking across the parking lot. Just as he entered the check-in building of that motel, the kids entered the camera's frame. Just as they got near the back of his car, one of the kids fell, and I saw him reach his arm underneath the car. He then got up and they rode off. About a minute later, I saw Mike leaving the motel lobby. He opened the envelope, read the paper, and then crumbled it up and threw it on the ground. He then got out his phone and called someone while walking to his car. He got in and left after putting the phone back into his pocket. I had another huge grin on my face, knowing I was slowly winning the game. I got onto my laptop and watched the little red dot slowly getting further and further away. About an hour later, I decided to go check up on what Mike was doing, hoping to find the location of where he was staying. I drove to the area where the GPS locator was stopped at. I parked about half a mile away and started walking to his location. It was a little parking lot of a Mexican food restaurant, but as I scanned the parking lot looking for his car, it wasn't there. I walked up to the front of the restaurant and could see by the entrance that there was a little manila envelope. I walked up to it and opened it. All that was inside was my GPS locator and a note. It said, "Tag, now you're it." My smile and thoughts were cut short as a little hole exploded out of the pillar next to me. As I ducked behind the pillar, another hole was created in the brick wall that was now in front of me. Fuck, he's shooting at me. Where's the sound of the gun though? I thought quickly. He must have a silencer. Shit. I completely fell in for his trap. I'm such a fucking idiot. What the fuck do I do now? I pulled out my 9mm and peeked my head out around the pillar. I couldn't see him. Fuck. I had no other choice but to run. He was closing in on me. I ran into the restaurant, went through the kitchen as a whole bunch of workers were yelling at me, and darted out the back door. I ran down the alley that the back door led me to, my adrenaline pumping. As I neared the end of the alley, I heard something whiz by me, tearing a side of my shirt. Almost out of the alley, I ducked behind a big metal dumpster. I chambered around, popped out a bit, and shot twice at him. A loud-ass bang bang as the bullets exited the end of the barrel. Fuck, everyone around is going to hear that, and this guy has a goddamn silencer, so he doesn't need to worry about that. I need to get the fuck out of here before the cops show up. I darted out of the alley, and as I rounded the corner, I heard another bullet strike the wall. I looked back and saw a huge chunk taken out of the corner. I ran as fast as I could back to my car, trying my best to make sure that he didn't follow me. As I got in and took off, I looked back to see Mike running around the corner, looking around trying to find me. For a guy his size and a suit, he sure as hell was pretty damn fast. I then hit a red light and a few cars around me, and I could still see him running in my direction, trying to look for me. I could tell that he still didn't know which one was my car. He was frantically looking around. He kept getting closer and closer, until finally, he was right beside me on the other side of the street. The only thing that was between us was another car in the left lane. Come the fuck on, light. Turn fucking green. I was fucking hysterical at this point. The man that wanted to kill me was about 15 feet away. All he had to do was to look hard enough through my tent, and he'd know that it was me. He then continued walking and pulled out his phone. Right as he hit the street corner, the light turned green, and I fucking gunned it. As soon as I knew he was away from me, I started laughing louder and louder. It was the loudest I've ever laughed before. I was so close to death, and yet, I never felt more alive. This is exciting. This was exactly what I needed, and I already couldn't wait for our next encounter. Only next time, it would be on my terms. I got back to my motel room and got upstairs. I sat down on the bed, started thinking about what had just happened, and planning my next move. I was such a fucking idiot for falling for that trap. He had to have seen those kids plant that thing, or he had some type of bug detector like mine that could find planted electronics. I didn't know which one, but I did have a few more pieces of valuable information. They were monitoring my bank accounts. He has a silencer and is not afraid to shoot in public, and from what I saw, he's not bad at his job. I had just gotten extremely lucky that I had switched cars and he didn't happen to see me. I collapsed on the bed exhausted as all this adrenaline wore off. About 15 minutes had passed as I lie on the bed contemplating everything. That's when I got a phone call. I looked at my phone and it was a phone number that I didn't recognize from a 480 area code. I answered. Well, hello there. You left so soon, we didn't even get to play. Who is this? I asked like a dumbass. I knew who it was. Don't worry about who I am. It's yourself that you need to worry about. I started laughing. Oh, Mike, my buddy, it's you. I don't think... How do you know my name? He snapped. You shouldn't interrupt people while they're talking, Mike. It's quite rude. As I was saying, I don't think I need to worry about myself too much. I'm it now, though, right? So, I'll be seeing you, I said. A few seconds of silence followed. It sounded like he was in the car. You'll be seeing me sooner than you think. And then he hung up. I don't know what he meant by that, but I needed to get the fuck out of this hotel and into a new one. I wrote down the number that he called me from and packed up all my stuff and got out of there as quick as I could. As I was leaving, all I could think of was how the fuck he got my number. I threw the phone out the window and kept driving. As I was driving away, I saw his car pull into the motel parking lot that I had just left. Anyways, once again, I need to get going. This bar I'm at, called the Blind Tiger, is packed, but I've been here for too long and need to get going back to my hotel. I also need to start prepping for tomorrow. Tomorrow should be fun. Thanks for reading, guys. Until next time. Thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to go ahead and say this, and I hope it doesn't come off too rude or anything like that, but I finally got approved for this story. This is hands down my most favorite story ever. So this means a lot more to me than anyone realizes. And once I got the go-to for this, I had to record it. So this is just part one, well, my part one of the series. It's probably going to be maybe 3 parts, most likely. There's quite a bit of the story, so. But this was the first story I ever heard like horror story wise, on YouTube. This was my very first story I ever heard. And it was back when Corpse first uploaded it. That was God knows how long ago. But ever since I started YouTube, I wanted to do this story. This is the #1 story I've ever wanted to do. So this is kind of more for me than more for you guys, because this is a big deal for me. It may just seem like a story that everybody's heard, but I'm gonna get those comments, and I really do not give a fuck, because I've been waiting to do this story for a very long time, and I finally heard back after, I think I waited for about 6 or 7 months to get a reply. But yeah, but if you guys did like this and you guys would like to hear the second and third parts, make sure to like, comment, and if you're new to this channel and you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe. I will say, if everybody does want to hear the next parts, I will do the second series. There are 2 series of this story, so just know that. But make sure to check out the links in the description as well, like Twitter, Instagram, yada yada, you know the basis. But with that being said, stay safe, stay scary, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm so fucking excited.